Guys, great news. The top-selling inshore saltwater spinning reel on our entire site by a large margin, the Otis 2500, is back. It's sold out like crazy during November and the Black Friday, but we have them back in officially right now. Get them while you can. They go fast. Insider members save $50. You save half your membership just on that one purchase. And when you pair it with a rod like the slot machine or the slam stick, you literally pay for your membership in just that one purchase. And what's really cool, both the slam stick and the slot machine are so light. Those rods are so incredibly light. When you combine it with this super light reel, the Otis 2500, it actually floats. So it is crazy. Don't do it unless you have to. But if you happen to lose your rod or reel over the edge or off of a kayak or paddleboard like my brother Luke has many times, it actually floats. You can pull it back in, wash it off, and keep using it. So that's at fishstrong.com. Make sure if you're a member, you're logged in. If you're not a member, what the heck are you waiting on? Sign up today and join the 65,000 other members in the Salt Strong Insider Club. Otherwise, here's the episode.
This fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way.
And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing.
Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Ending live bait fishing for fishing. This is crazy. This is not a joke. This is a real thing. If you're listening, we're going to go through this new potential ban by this company called Upstream Policies, who's working on a multi-state campaign to restrict any sort of live bait fishing, meaning that means you can't get shiners for bass. You couldn't go get greenbacks. I'm guessing even shrimp would fall in there. Obviously, worms would fall in there for freshwater fishing. Pretty bonkers. And they've had a little bit of success, which is even scarier. And and this is not Luke and I trying to sell more Slam Shady and trying to say live bait's bad. This is a real deal. And I want to say it up front. I'm Joe Simons. I like diamonds. And
I'm Luke Simons.
And we saw this here yesterday. I've heard talks about it before, but really didn't take it serious. And then I saw what American Sport Fishing Association, ASA, put out a brief on this, and the title is Tracking Legislative Efforts by an Animal Rights Group to Ban Live Bait. And so they did a really fantastic job. So thank you, ASA, for doing this. And they highlighted kind of what's going on behind the scenes. So you guys have all heard of PETA. You know, PETA came up with that, in my opinion, pretty obnoxious campaign a while back where they hired Joaquin Phoenix or whatever and was drowning, and they're like, fish feel pain and no one should ever fish again. And this group, if you look deep, they have some similar beliefs that fish feel pain and we should never even be using live bait. And even on one of their websites, they talk about all the pain that's inflicted every time that you put a hook in a live bait fish to throw it out to catch another fish. And they didn't get much traction on that. And so now they're coming at it from essentially a different spin, where they're talking about the threat of our fisheries is not the pain that you're inflicting on all these little small poor minnows and shiners and pinfish. It's more of that you're taking maybe some fish in some of the water and it might have contaminants in it and putting it into another body of water, and that's messing up the whole ecosystem. Is that kind of what you read, Luke?
Yeah, and just for the good news in all this is the one litigation that went through. I can't remember what state it was in. It was voted down 15-0. So and it was really because they knew how many fishermen this would impact, and so the importance is just for all of us to make sure to stick together and to introduce more people into fishing, because as long as we keep a big base, this kind of legislation will have a really tough time actually getting through. So glad to say that it got quick.
If you keep reading, because that's on page 6, that's in New Hampshire. New York is still going. New York is still active. So they did kill it in New Hampshire. It's active in New York. So they're moving forward and have traction in New York. It actually was enacted in Delaware. So parts of this, I guess, are enacted, and it's actually working in one state. In Colorado, it was filed and died. It got voted out. So to your point, yes, I think a lot of the states are knocking this off and saying this is obnoxious. But there's a couple of states where it's actually getting some traction. So that's kind of the scary part. I'm going to read their site, and this is kudos to PETA and these groups because they do such a good job of reframing things like all politicians do to make it sound great and savory for everyone. So this is from Upstream Aquatic Institute. This is from the company Upstream Policies, who's behind this, and it's at what's at stake. Understanding the threats to our fisheries. The thrill of a tight line depends on one simple thing: a healthy, thriving fishery. Agree. We all want the same thing: strong fish populations that make for a great day on the water and a tradition we can pass down for generations. Very smart marketers. They're so far they're getting used to say, yes, I do agree with that. Healthy, vibrant fish populations are the backbone of any great fishery, but when new invasive species are introduced, boo-hoo, they can throw the whole system out of balance by competing for food and habitat and putting the fish that we love at risk. It's just not the species you see either. Invisible threats like fish diseases and pathogens, can spread quickly and harm a fishery before we even know there's a problem. So how do these threats get around? They're called hitchhikers. They can carry a ride on our boats, our trailers, our fishing gear, which is why angler-led efforts like Clean, Drain, Dry are so essential for stopping many invasive species. So what they're saying there is you could be in one body of water, catching your bait, taking it out, or maybe you're keeping it in a live well or a little bubbler or whatever, or you have times like in freshwater. There's guys that sell shiners, right? And they'll go get it from one lake, let's just say Lake Okeechobee. That's not real world, but maybe that's where they're getting it. And then they sell it over in Lake Kissimmee or a different lake. And now you have that same water that all the shiners were caught in is now, getting dumped, bucket by bucket, live well to live well into this new lake and this new ecosystem. And so what they're doing now, instead of just going after the pain, like the PETA part of it, they're now trying to say that, and there might be some, I assume there is some truth to that. I just don't know how bad of a deal this is, that there are times when you're transporting certain bait fish into a new ecosystem that it could have some hitchhikers. So that is kind of how they're targeting this and getting some traction, because everything I read, like it doesn't sound that bad, right? If it was PETA saying, oh, the fish feel the pain, even though, and by the way, PETA knows that because they personally interviewed over 1,000 fish for their survey. But some of that stuff, you're like kind of rolling your eyes like, all right, that didn't even make any sense. If that was true, why are fish killing each other, by the day? Why would a grown predator fish eat its own kids that it just had? That's not like humans. So there's a lot of little holes that you can poke in this one. But so far, everything I've read sounds kind of sounds okay.
Yeah, let's say one interesting stat that I didn't know of. Obviously, this is really focused on freshwater, again, at least for the time being.
To start. And that's why ASA is involved, because this is just the beginning. They're going to come after saltwater next.
Yeah, this is to get a foot in the door. But one fact I didn't know, at least a supposed fact, is Arkansas is a giant exporter of bait fish. A lot of bait fish are raised, like farmed and raised in Arkansas, and then sold off to a bunch of different states. And so they're really pinpoint on that. And it did mention that Arkansas was putting a ton of effort onto making sure that all these pathogens or whatever they are minimized as much as possible. But I just didn't know that was a big state of raising bait fish.
Yeah, it says here, most freshwater bait fish sold in the U.S. are produced in Arkansas. And the state has worked with the industry to develop voluntary fee-supported inspection and verification program. You have to have certifications in the APHIS certified laboratories, on-site inspections, and stringent biosecurity requirements. Really good, just 11-pager, pretty easy to read. But this on here on page 4, this is where ASA really talks about the threat. This is setting the stage for the campaign's framing under the guise of invasive species. So that really is the theme here, that they're really just trying to hammer this, that it's all invasive species, where ultimately, probably behind the scenes, and this is just a guess, I've not been behind the scenes, that there's and more of an underlying reason that it's more about kind of PETA related, and we're trying to end live bait fishing forever. I guess the only good news is they like lures, I'm guessing, if that's the only other option. But yeah, it's got the 4 states that it's been kind of pushed through so far. It also talks about the size of meaning like money wise, like the size of this industry is huge. Did that surprise you too, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's going to be our protection from this kind of legislation is the size. And so it's on us to make sure that we're spreading the joy of fishing to kids and friends, family, whoever isn't yet doing it.
So 2022 U.S. angler spending on bait, and that includes live bait, cut bait, and prepared baits, $2 billion. That's nuts. And 1.5 was fresh, and 525,000 or 526,000 was saltwater. That's crazy. And a little over half of anglers, even more so in freshwater, which I was surprised by, because we always grew up. I know we buy shiners occasionally or net them, but for the most part, we were using soft plastics, spinner baits and stuff like that. Were you surprised that 67% of anglers spend money on live bait in a given year?
Yeah, it was, especially the freshwater ones. But then further down, it was it gave a percentage of fin fish, so shiners, really just bait fish, and that was like 25%. So I think a big percentage of that live bait, cut bait fishing is either like worms or shrimp. Plus, obviously the frozen bait sounds like that was in a different category, but and I know a lot of saltwater. I mean, it's pretty easy to net. So I'm sure I know a lot of saltwater people who live bait fish just go out and net it versus buy it. But yeah, I was definitely surprised that I thought that the freshwater side would have a minority using the natural baits versus lures.
Yep. And then this appendix was really good, because it's all going to come down to real data and science. It can't just be on emotions and feelings. And this is where the ASA does a really good job of essentially refuting all of these reports and claims, from covering that, hey, the one study you did was on a really, really small segment, like a sample size of 10 fish per shop. It was on a really small sample size, to some of these things, or some koi herpes that was found in a specific species, that not really relevant to anywhere else. So they do a good job of really getting down to the flaws in some of the science behind this. So it's certainly worth reading and looking at. And we just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, because at some point, if this does come to a vote, like it is in some of these states that we highlighted earlier, like Delaware, New York, New Hampshire, and Colorado, if they continue to keep getting traction, they will continue to push it into other states. And this is where anglers need to get loud, like we have so many other times, to make sure that doesn't happen, right? Where we have to talk to our representatives and make sure these things do get unanimously voted down by 15-0, which was pretty cool to see that in New Hampshire. But I honestly thought it was a joke when I first started looking at it. I was like, man, this is real. And this is a real company that's got some, from what it looks like, some big backers and some big money, just like PETA. You wonder how they do their stuff. Like, man, they have some really big money behind them. So money talks, but you know what? Votes talk even louder. And especially when you have votes and money, when you got $1 billion of revenue and taxes that would be getting eliminated for this, this is going to be really, really tough to completely upend. But we've been shocked before by small little, almost nuisance groups that you just kind of don't think about, and all of a sudden they start getting momentum and traction and get a couple little things pass and start a precedent, and now have some velocity and some momentum. So really, really important to educate yourself on this and be aware of it, and we'll continue to do any updates on it as we hear more. But thank you to ASA for putting all this together. Really, really helpful, and we'll put a link in the show notes to it as well.
Yeah, just some good intel. Yeah, it's like Joe said, it's like 11-pager, not super long. Good stats. A lot of very helpful data in there that I certainly learned from. And yeah, just the biggest thing we can all do is just make sure to take people out fishing as often as you can. That's why we publish a lot of just very basic fishing tips where somebody who's just never done it before, never had that friend to help them out, can learn online. But there's nothing better than actually taking somebody. So highly encourage you to do that as often as possible, and we'll of course, and obviously share our tips as often as possible, and that way we can make sure to have the army of fishermen to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't actually get passed. Because once it's passed, it's just going to be very tough to reverse. So,
oh yeah,
we got to get these things knocked down before they actually get through.
Yep. And I'm going to sound like an old dad, or old grandpa saying this, but I do think the more ammo you give groups like this on social media, the better their case gets to people that don't like seeing fish getting killed. And where I'm going with this is the whole blacking out of your live well, regardless if you're freshwater or salt, but it's more of a saltwater thing, right? Where you throw, a big 10, 12 foot net, 14 foot net, and you literally have as many bait fish as you possibly can. And we did this. Luke and I were guilty of this when we first started getting into inshore saltwater fishing. Remember, we thought it was cool. I mean, it was a blacked out live well. And I do think we do ourselves a disservice, one, by just killing that many bait fish if you don't truly need them, which there's no way you need 400 or 500. And two, by putting on social media and showing that. I mean, these groups do use that stuff against anglers, saying, look what they do. These are just a bunch of killers, cold-hearted killers. Why would anyone need 300 or 400 white bait on a fishing day to go get three to 6 redfish? I will just say, as the old man and someone who is starting to lean towards the conservation side, as I continue to get older and have kids who are getting into fishing the outdoors, I do think it's wise of us to be smart about how we use our live bait. We use live bait. Live bait's amazing. If I was going to go catch a trophy fish, I love live bait as much as we sell lures and use lures. For the majority of the time, live bait's awesome. It's still, I don't know the last time I blacked out a live well or even really wanted to do that. Whether you think I'm wrong or right, I know that's not setting a good example for the younger kids, and it's also not helping our course. If we do have to go against them and they have thousands of videos, look at all these people across the country who are just blacking out their live wells and just killing fish for killing fish. Thoughts on that, Luke, or am I being too harsh?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's definitely not helping. So yeah, it's and in many cases, it's more like even chumming. Like a lot of times chumming is best when you're doing sporadic chumming. That was a lesson that Captain Ryan Harrington gave. Is if you're chumming with a ton, which we used to do because we would go out and spend like an hour catching bait and got as many in the live well as possible. And then we're starting to throw out big groups of them. And when you do that, they form their own little school and they can actually dodge predators pretty quickly. Less is more. We're throw out ones one at a time and give it some chance. That now they're all kind of on their own, super scared and they'll stay in the area longer. So I think it's a disservice just getting that much bait fish. You don't need it. It's hard to keep them all alive. In most cases, a lot of them die because there's just not enough oxygen in the live well. But the whole idea of getting that much so you can chum, you're actually doing a disservice by throwing out too much. They form them schools and they're gone. So less is more. And as we've proved a lot, like I used to be live bait only, where I was doing exactly what Joe was talking about. And once I got better with lures and got older, now I have responsibilities where I can't get out there and fish for more than 2 hours most of the time. It's always quick trips. Having lures gives the freedom to be able to have some success without being out there all day. And you don't have to worry about, I had my live well go out on my boat and I waited like a year to fix it because I didn't care. I don't hardly ever use live bait anymore. Do catch release mostly. Lures is a better challenge. And then once I finally started getting good at picking the right lure for the conditions, now I'm catching better fish than I was with live bait. But because you can strategically use lures to weed out the smaller fish if you want to go after the bigger ones, or of course you can get smaller lures if you want to go out for max quantity. But long story short, I did myself a disservice by not even trying lures because I thought live bait was a requirement for saltwater. In reality, saltwater fish are way more aggressive than bass. And don't be like me where I would use lures for bass and then live bait for saltwater. If you can catch bass on lures, you can much more easily catch redfish, snook, and trout with lures. It's just about picking the right one and most importantly, picking the right spots. And that's really why we started the club. It's just to help those who want to get better as quickly as possible, not have it be like a 10-year progression like ours was. You could get that progression in a month or two in many cases. So yeah, don't hold yourself hostage to live bait like we used to.
Yeah, and the club he's talking about is the Salt Strong Insider Club. If you haven't heard about it, 65,000 members as of recording this. And yeah, the two big promises, you're going to catch more fish in way less time and save money on your tackle. Never pay full retail price for your tackle again. So those are the two big promises. And if it doesn't happen in your first year, you can ask for your money back. So you got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And we got, Fishing School, Smart Fishing Spots is the app that, a lot of people get real excited about. And even some full-time guides now are using it from from their everyday tides and trends. So they're dropping all their waypoints and kind of building their catch logs in there. Super, super, super helpful. So yeah, come join us if you haven't. And if you do want to get better at lures and not be held hostage, as we say, to a live bait, yeah, definitely come join us. We got a ton of different tips and just cheat sheets. We're trying to, like Luke said, cut that learning curve down to almost nothing. To get you where you can consistently and confidently go out there and slay it with just lures. Wow your friends and wow your spouses and the kids. It really just, to me, it makes it so much more fun. It gives you freedom, gives you control, and a whole lot more flexibility.
Yeah, and even for live bait, the club isn't just focused on lures, but it's all about finding the fish. Once you get good at consistently finding the fish, you're going to catch them consistently, regardless of using live bait or lures. The lures will actually help you get better at finding the fish if that's a need that you have. Lures, you can cover more water and see a lot more examples of what we call the 90-10 zone. And once you get the eye for that and start to learn what types of areas produce at certain tides, certain seasons, obviously, certain tide cycles. It goes from being challenging. It's quick on being something that's a super challenge to how did I fish the winter and never catch anything? Now winter's my favorite time because they're super easy to predict. But that lesson was much more easy to learn using lures because I actually started moving around more and started noticing trends on where those fish were. And obviously those trends are what we focus on. So we're using lures or live bait. The club can be a giant resource to cut off 10 plus years of trial and error.
Yep. And even if you're already pretty good, there's always something you can learn. And the community there, like I said, we even have guides who were in there and paying full price, just like all the other members. Just such a cool place. So come join us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thank you guys. Make sure to keep an eye out for any more information on this from ASA. And we'll continue to do our updates as well. Everything that we share in this is the opinion of just Joe and Luke Simons. We always like to tell it like it is from our thoughts and from just the research that we've done. So if we were wrong on any of this, let us know. We'd love to correct it if anything was incorrect on this. But just going after what we can from what we find on the old interwebs. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you on the next episode. Peace.
'Cause fishing